Hello. So you got the hair done, huh?
I just want to make sure you can hear me. You can hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, you're on mute, Quintella. Jillian.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
I just want to make sure. We're just going to give people a few more minutes. R-E-S-P-C-T, learn what it means to me. R-E-S-P-C-T, take out T-C-T. I'm just gonna give it's just right at 1 o'clock, so I'll give people a few more. Okay, I'm going. Take my picture off. Just mute everybody coming in and go ahead and get started. I'm really excited that today is it ends our little 3-part series of women in leadership, and today's guest is near and dear to my heart. She's actually my cousin, And I'm happy to be able to showcase her career and her accomplishments because I know how hard she's worked over the years. So, with saying that, we have a few people that this is their first time joining us, and I just want to go through what this is all about. Some of you guys have been here for the last 3 weeks, and I really, really appreciate your support and my vision to do this. Um, for some of you, you don't know that this actually came out of my being quarantined and trying to find ways to stay engaged and keep my mind engaged. And and just one night I thought maybe I should showcase women in leadership, and so this is how this came to fruition. And so I'm excited, and we've had some great speakers over the last 2 weeks prior to this week, and some really good connections were made, especially last week, and just the information that was shared, and I just can't be happier to know that we're providing support to others, and not just women in leadership, but just other people who need connections, who need help to maneuver through sometimes in life and just across their careers. So this just makes my heart warm to be able to do this. Just a little bit about my business. That's essentially what Turner Business Solutions is about. It's something that I've been pondering over for years, and I have to admit it's been almost 10 years. So things just, and I say that because sometimes people think, you're just this instant, I don't know, celebrity, if you will, for lack of a better word. But just it wasn't instant, and it's still something that I'm building upon. So this is just the intro to some of the wonderful things that you might see come out of TBS. And I'm happy that you guys are here with me at the start of this. And if there's ideas that you have or connections that you think would be beneficial, just share them with me. I'm open to that as I continue to build this business and a way to support younger people as they're going through their careers and maneuvering through life. I'm gonna put everybody, just make sure everybody's on mute so that we don't hear the back noise. I'll mute you here. Phoebe, if you can mute your phone on your end, that would be helpful. Thank you. So let's get into, with the agenda for today is I'm gonna let a few of the participants that are new just introduce themselves, but I'll call you and just take 2 seconds only, just to say who you are, a little bit about your background. And then I'll introduce the speaker. I'll do Q&A with the speaker, and then I'll give you guys the opportunity to ask questions. One of the things that I wanted to mention about just kind of the whole overall connecting businesses and supporting businesses as we are going through this time, we just don't know how long we'll be in this situation. And I'm happy to know that everybody on this call is safe and our families are safe during this time. But one of the things that I try to do in showcasing other businesses and supporting small businesses is actually wearing things that I've purchased from other small businesses. So this necklace is from Darlene. She's not on here, but she sells paparazzi. It's a beautiful piece that I purchased from her. This pendant that I'm wearing is not because, I just love Chanel and I want to give them a bunch of money, but I actually purchased this from a Black woman that I met on Instagram who makes these. So if you're ever interested, just let me know. So those little nuances are things that I pride myself on, just kind of helping to get you all to support other businesses. So I just wanted to highlight that. It's just not that I want to be pretty, but I am showcasing other people's merchandise. All right. So we talked a little bit about what this is about, and we'll go into our speaker. I'll introduce our speaker. So Miss Jillian, she is, like I said, she's actually my cousin, but I mean, I can't tell you how happy and proud I am of her. And one of the reasons why I chose Jillian was because I wanted to showcase a younger person that had worked really hard to get to the point that she's at today. So I'm just, astounded about talking about her career and the 19 years she spent in HR, in the HR field, and all the different federal and private sector experience that she's had over the years. One of the things that, and this was something that I added, she didn't say this, but she doesn't know, that I added to her bio is that she's the epitome of a woman who worked her way up the ranks. And I say that because I've seen it. And I just want you guys to know that this is this is this is not easy. It's not something that, you know, and most of you all know that, but I, for the younger people, I cannot stress enough how you have to put in the work. Because we have a few that join us, we have a few that listen in the background, and so I just want to set the tone because they watch our careers and they watch our progression, but they don't. And a lot of the young people nowadays, they just don't want to put in the work. So I can't stress that enough. So she's currently a supervisory HR specialist at the Department of Energy. And if you guys notice the trend, the last two were also supervisors at the Department of Energy. So I call this the Women in Energy series as well. And so if you don't know, I also work at the Department of Energy. It just happened to be that these women all worked at Energy, not because I picked them, because we worked together. I didn't know Mary Ann, the speaker from last week, before I was in a leadership program. So I didn't meet her at work. I don't think I would have met her if I didn't go through that leadership program. But it just so happens that all of these women are women of energy. So I'm proud about that because we do some interesting and great work at Department of Energy. So she's currently working for the National Nuclear Energy Administration. She's been there, and I didn't realize, Jillian, you've been there since 2016. I was saying a year and a half, but you've been there for some time now. And she transitioned over to the federal space from private sector, where she was working for Deloitte for a few years. And I thought when she first came over to energy, I thought, why would she make that transition? But you'll get to hear all about that as we go through the questions with her. So without further ado, I'll go into the questions with Jillian.
Thank you, Shanae. I appreciate it.
Welcome. So Jillian, thank you again for agreeing to do this with me. I know that you could be doing anything on your Saturday afternoon, but we're happy that you're spending it with us. So
absolutely.
I won't hold up any more time, and I'll give you an opportunity now to just introduce yourself and talk about your overall career experience before we get into some of the detailed questions.
Okay. So as Shanae said, I worked my way up. I actually started out in the federal government as a stay-in-school student. I worked at past the judge advocate office for DODIG office as just a student office automation clerk. And then, I transitioned from there to Treasury OIG, where I was in the human resources office, and I loved it. Actually, at the time, I was going to school to study criminal justice, but my passion became HR because I got to help people in different aspects and being able to show my talent that way. And so I stuck with the HR realm since 1998. And then as I transitioned from an HR assistant to an HR specialist, to a supervisor, to a director at different agencies throughout the government. And I just wanted to continue to build my career throughout that. And so one of the things that I pride myself on is never giving up, especially when I have a passion for helping people. Just being able to see people get jobs, being able to give them the information of what can I do to help you. And so I love to be able to talk about the human resources part, federal and private sectors, because they are different. As Shanae said, I went in and out of the federal government, private sector, back to the federal government. And for me, it was more of what was more beneficial for me. Where can I get the more reap my benefit of being able to help people succeed in their career. So.
Good. May I add that Jillian, in doing this sheet, and I added this also, Jillian, so I hope you don't. That she started off very young, and she was married at a young age. So she went through her career as a wife and a mother. So I just have to point that out, because I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. And for you to have gone so far from such a young age, you know, that's something that you should be proud of. Just tell us a little bit about what it took for you to get to the point where you are now, you know, and how difficult or challenging or life lessons that you've learned as you move through your career.
One of the things I have to be thankful for is for my family, the support system that I had. If it wasn't for you, my mom, my sister, my dad, my husband, my kids, giving me the balance to be able to continue with my career, even when it's the challenging times of work and work-life balance, sometimes not having a work-life balance. And so one of the things that I do take my hat off is my support system. That's my biggest reason for success, because if I didn't have the support system, I definitely wouldn't be where I am now.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about how you balance work and life.
That was one of my biggest struggles, because I love to take on the challenge of something that people say that I can't do. And so sometimes it takes me off track of the work-life balance. So now, actually, I read a few books. One of the books, one of my favorites, is called Good to Great. It's by Jim Collins. And so I read that during a leadership conference, and it talks about managing my energy, managing my time, and being able to close off just working. One of the things that required me when I was a supervisor at Deloitte was I had 3 different federal contractors that was all over the United States. So I had to deal with people on the West Coast. I had to deal with people in the Midwest. I had Chicago. I had New Orleans, and so different time zones. And so my phone would ring all the time. And so I had to learn to balance that. Say, hey, you know what? I can't talk to you at 9 o'clock, even though it's 4 o'clock your time. I need to make sure that I am still active in my kids' life. Both my kids play sports. Right. And so I had to shut off that time and be okay with it. And so that was one of the things that was the hardest, is to balance the work-life balance. But, reading that book and managing my energy, I found that I became more healthy. I became more focused and been able to benefit different aspects of my life. And so, being able to actually work out and not say, oh, I'm gonna work out, but I'm too tired to because I've been on conference calls all day, or that I'm taking calls at 6 and 7 o'clock in the afternoon, where it doesn't require me to even spend time with my kids, my husband, or even work out. So I had to learn that. And that was one of the hardest things, even as a supervisor, that you do learn. But work-life balance is a must.
Throughout your career, and I'm particularly interested in your stint with the private sector, but with you being so young, has there ever been a time that you've gone into a room with your beautiful young face and people question, what is this little girl doing here? And does she know what she's doing? Have you ever encountered that?
Oh, yes. So even when I was at Deloitte in particular, I encountered that my first week there. They had no idea that I had that many years of federal HR service. And so the manager said, hey, I've never been able to get the hiring timeline under 80 days. And I spoke up, I said, I can get it done in 60. He said, no way. I said, okay, give me 65 since you're doubting that I can do it. And he was like, you can't, I just don't see it. I don't see that that's possible. And he said, you're all of 12, you're probably fresh out of high school. And I'm like, no, I actually have 10, at that time, I probably have, 17, 16 years at that point. I said, no, I got 16 years of federal HR experience. And I told him how he had no idea. I mean, he's been working at Deloitte over 15 years. And here I was, this young Black girl that walked in and was like, oh, no, I can do it. And he was like, no, you can't. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll take that challenge. And so I did. I put on a hat where I said, even though I had, specialists that did not understand federal HR, I still was able to mentor them, been able to train them, and still get us in a successful plan to be able to meet my goal. And so I'm faced with that challenge all the time because people look at me or they say, oh, she doesn't have that background. But I'm always willing to share my knowledge. And so that was one of the key takeaways in my success of being a leader, being a mentor, is when people tell you that you can't, always tell them that you can, and don't stop until you do it.
Absolutely. Have you ever run into a situation where, you've just said that, okay, I accomplished that goal, but that's just not for me? because I look at that as, kind of, we have, who we are and our being, but sometimes we take jobs or we're in jobs that may not be a good fit for us, but we have a job to do. So yeah, I accomplished that, but during that process, I learned that this is just not for me. Have you encountered things like that in your career?
I did. I'll go back a few years where I went from the specialist role to the HR director role. That time in my career, I don't think I knew I wasn't ready for that. Not to say that now would I say that I'm not ready, because I think I am. I'm more ready than I was then. But I looked at the goal differently at that point. And so going into an HR director's role, you deal with the political part of it. And I wasn't versed in, political power at that point. I didn't understand it. And so for me, that was a challenge. And that was one of those like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I took this on too fast, not understanding what was required for that job. And so that was, to me, one of the biggest things that I said, oh no, I wouldn't have did it then.
Yeah.
Because at that time I was career driven, more of money side than career focused side. So.
Okay. Can you hear me? I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah.
How did you turn that around? So you figured out pretty quickly that you weren't versed on political powers, and I understand that because I deal with it every day. In some days I have my bouts of doing or saying the wrong things, but you regroup and you come back from those things. But how did you turn that around for yourself? What did you do when you realized that you might have jumped in too fast?
One of my mentors, leaders, is my mom. And so she's been around the federal sector way longer than I have. And so when I got into that role, she was one of the first persons I called and like, Mom, I can't do this. And she's like, yeah, you can. She's like, you just have to look at it differently. Train your thought process, change your thought pattern. Think positive. Don't allow it to change who you are. You just have to adapt. And so that was one of the things that once I changed my thought process of that position, the political power, learning to say not say everything that's on my mind, learning to listen, listen first,
Growing pain.
instead of just answering or just giving my opinion. Sometimes you just have to listen to what their expectation is.
As much as I like to talk, a lot of times I'm in a room filled with a lot of people who like to talk. And I kind of take note of and take inventory of the people that I'm in the room with. I let them do all the talking because my reasoning for that is I go back and do the work. So you can do all the talking in the world. Maybe you make sense, maybe you don't make sense. I take what I need and I keep it moving, right? So I hear you on that. You know, just not always saying the things that's on your mind. I had to learn hard lessons in that. I mean, I would shoot off emails, smart emails at work. And I remember I had a boss who would say, now you should not send things like that in writing. Okay, but I can say it in person. Pains over the years, but the things that you do when you're younger. You mentioned something that your mom told you. Don't let that going through that process change who you are. That just brings me to one of the books that I loved to read to help me get to who I was authentically as a manager, or just in my space, in my career, just like, who am I in this space? You seem to do a good job with that. So how would you say you got to the point to be your authentic self as a leader, as a manager, as you're going through your career, mentoring and guiding other people?
I would say never always be willing to learn, because you're not the smartest person in the room. Mm-hmm. Always be willing to take on the constructive feedback. Always willing to hear people out. Everyone goes through have their own story. Everyone has their own battles that they deal with. And so being a leader, you also have to take into account where people come from and where they're coming from. Mm-hmm. One of the books, HBR, it's 10 must reads on leadership. That book is another one of my favorite books. It tells me how to be not just a good leader, but a great leader. How to manage my employees, how to deal with the difficult employees, how to be able to still mentor even people that are ready to retire, being able to help them succeed to their plan.
Mm-hmm. Sorry guys, I have my dog locked in the room with us today. Neighbor starts to cut the grass. I'm gonna let her out. She's usually quiet when I have her locked in here for conference calls, so sorry about that. So you've talked about a lot of the great aspects of leading people and the things that you've done to actually be able to do that. But talk about some of the not so great things of leading teams and the challenges that you face with managing your employees, and how personality traits can cause conflict with your leadership style and things like that.
I guess one of my biggest challenges was moving from the specialist to a supervisor. I mean, when you gain friendships and being able to separate those lines from friends, coworkers to now boss, mm-hmm. That was a challenge. That is a challenge, but it's easier said than done. Being able to draw the fine lines. I guess one of my biggest challenges was I was the youngest in the office, and then to become the supervisors of women that have been there, have federal careers longer than I do. Mm-hmm. But again, it was being able to separate that and not feel intimidated by choosing the path that I did to become a supervisor.
Did you lose any friendships doing that?
Yeah, you do. You do. And it's okay, because, to me, that was just a stepping stone. if they can't accept you as who you are or who you're striving to be, then they weren't your friends in the beginning.
I can attest to that. Um, so what are some of the tactics though that you use, and even in when you're in a challenging situation? Because I won't call it difficult, because I think managing and becoming a good leader pushes you to figure out, who your staff is, what makes them be their best selves. I mean, it was a challenge for me to get to that point because I'm expecting people to just do their jobs, right? So yeah, you're getting a paycheck. I expect you to just do your job, right? But that's not how a good leader manages their team. You got to know who you're working with, know what their capabilities are. And it took me some time and some growing pains to get to that point. So what are some of the things that or tactics you've used to motivate your staff, and if you've had some difficulties with or challenges with people not actually being skilled to do the jobs, if you will, how you got them to the point that they are able to perform in an acceptable manner, or even above what your expectations were for them?
So one of the things I had to learn that everyone is not Jillian. Everyone doesn't have the same work ethics as Jillian. And so one of the things that I do even now is I do one-on-ones with my staff. I find out what their unique skill is and build off of that. That's how you learn what their strong suit is. You continue to let them strive in their strong suit and add to it. To me, it's all about being able to lead them in another direction, especially if you have a goal that you're trying to get to. Not just, I think some people just think that, oh, she can't do it. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to ask her to do it. No, you continue to mentor them into your goal, your one set of to complete the mission. To me, everything is not mission driven, but in order for you to understand your staff, you need to be able to have those one-on-one conversations, because that's where you learn a lot of what they're going through, because everything is not just black and white. You go through a lot of different things in their careers that you have to understand in order to help them build. So one of the things that I love to do is our one-on-ones, and help them build from there.
Nice.
And providing feedback. One of the things, as you all know, I'm in HR, and so when I get questions from managers of, oh, this person is not performing, my question to them is, what have you done to help them perform? What have you done to help change their mind, change their mindset, change their thought process, help them see that they can be better? And so that's why, I tell my team all the time, please don't worry about my training dollars, because I'll find it. Please don't, if you want the training, I'll get it. Let me deal with that battle.
We actually are fortunate that we work in an agency that supports training the way that they do, right? I mean, I've over the years gotten 2 degrees, gone through 2 leadership programs, have Lean Six Sigma certification, all on the government's dime. But I was fortunate enough to be in an agency that had the budget that could do it. Not everybody's in that situation, but given that, I mean, I'm happy to hear you say you would find it, because I've never heard a manager actually say, I'll find the training dollars if that's what you want to do. We usually hear the budget won't support, going through that training. So I think that's phenomenal on your part, that you actually tell them that you're finding the training dollars. And I'm assuming that you actually do.
I do. One thing about my team is what I told my leadership, and this is one of the challenges, you get in front of my SESers, my senior executive members, that says, oh, you guys are all, equivalent to GS 13 and 14. What training do you need? And I said, well, when do you stop learning? You don't know everything. HR is a fast moving, fast changing pace. Things change in a blink of an eye. As we go through this pandemic, I am learning something new every day. Managing my team 100% virtually. So there's always things to be learned. And so even if it's me researching to find you a free class,
I was going to ask.
I'll find a way. And so, you know, there used to be like this HR university that OPM used to have, which was free and anybody can take it. That was one of the top things that I used to tell everybody. Don't be afraid of that free class, because those free classes teach you a lot that you don't think. Just because you're not paying for it doesn't mean that it's not worth it, because it really was.
Right.
So, you know, it doesn't always have to be a paid class. Like I said, I research all the time. That's one of the things that I love to do, is to be able to research it and say, okay, well, you can take this course, or figure out a way for you to take the course, even if it's you taking it in 2 parts.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to mention the free class because I remember, I don't know, it's been some years, but you and I having a conversation, and I remember you saying, it's plenty of free training out there. I just don't know why people don't go and take it. So yeah, talk a little bit about rating employees' performance and how you handle those conversations, because I know some people on here are not in leadership or managerial positions, but they may find themselves in those positions. And that's one of the things that even to this day, I actually literally, when I have to do performance appraisals or reviews, I get up, I get dressed like I'm going to an interview, because I feel like it's one of those things I need to prepare myself for. Because I look at it, it's not only me mentoring and helping my staff with their careers, but actually they too have some onus on them to take their careers into their hands. And I've been in situations where they expect me as the manager to do it. You're the manager, you figure it out. Or when can I get a promotion to do these things? I'm doing all these things, you know, and sometimes in cases where people are in positions that don't have career ladders, you know, this is just what the job is. What, you know, how do you maneuver through those conversations? Because I know we as managers, we get that from our staff. We get that from our employees. And sometimes
Yeah, absolutely.
out for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I always, and my mom told me this, don't have a, so when we were in school, when me and my sister was in school, it was always, don't have the teacher call me and I don't know what happened.
Absolutely.
And so I even use that, you know, in my performance aspect, because my thing is, I'm gonna tell my employees that the issues that I'm having, I don't wait to mid-year, I don't wait to end of the rating cycle, because to me, that's the surprise of, oh, I'm not doing my job. No, don't do that. That's not an effective way to have them change. That would make the conversations hard. So that's why you feel like you got to go into an interview mode. Whereas to me, it's a regular day. So when I'm having my performance, it's, okay, let's talk about your accomplishments. You tell me, especially with mid-year, like we're going through mid-year now.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes you do have to remind your employees, because I was one of those employees that, yeah, I did a lot, but some of it was because that was my work ethic. I didn't see it as above and beyond. I didn't see it as something that was a small accomplishment. So I helped them list out, oh, no, did you think about this? Remember when you had to write this report in 2 hours because we had a deliverable to do? Those things are above and beyond your normal day. And being able to provide them with examples is always my thing. Provide them with examples, so when they're writing their mid-year, that they know, okay, what you're looking for. You know, think about the special projects that you provide them. And so what I do is I keep a chart of any time that I give someone a special project. Did they meet it? Did they exceed it? Those things. So when I'm writing an end of the year performance, I have it. each of my staff members have a folder. I put all their emails, that they get accolades from my SESers, any of their customers. And I tell them, yes, I know you did your job, but this is what we see above and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get.
And so being able to provide them the feedback throughout the year and not just mid-year or end of the year, because that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah. All right. I want to talk a little bit about, and I know some people are. I think I don't know if Kiera is still on here, but the federal hiring process, because I know that's always a question that I get. Why does it take so long to hire people? Or I've even heard recently that the baby boomers are not hiring the millennials. They just don't want us there. That is that's not true. It just depends on what the position is, what they're looking for, So just talk a little bit about the hiring, some of the challenges that you have on the back end, because I don't think that people even realize that, you have one specialist looking at 200 applications for one job that all these people have applied for. So that, they want to know why it's taking so long, because 200 people. I've gotten certs for positions that I was recruiting for with 45 applications to review, and that's after they've done the screening. So just talk about some of the challenges in that area that you face, so that people know why it takes so long in some cases.
So you guys only, sorry.
In 60 days.
Yeah. So the thing is, it's about strategy, right? And so what the normal person don't see is all the things that we do before the job is even posted. There's conversations with the managers, there's writing the position descriptions, there's writing the questionnaire. If you have good questions, you'll screen them out. It's self-screen out of the applicants being able to assess themselves. The other thing is, yes, when you have those cases where, it's that's a program analyst. Now that in itself, we get over 200 applicants.
Right.
And yes, sometimes my specialist has to look at all 200 applicants. I mean, it just depends. It can take long because sometimes the resume is not written to where we can easily qualify. It is times where you just, especially because I'm in staffing and recruitment, it is challenging as a staffer to read a resume and not understand what the person has done. And so one of my things that I've always tell people when I am helping them apply for a job, is this really the job that you want? Don't look at it and apply just because it's the grade or it's the money or it's your next stepping stone. Research the office first. Make sure that's something that you really want. When you look at the specialized experience, what they're looking for, don't just copy and paste that, because that doesn't help you. It doesn't help anybody that's looking at your resume say that they actually know the work. Mm-hmm. And so that's why, some people feel like, they don't hire millennials. That's not true, because I was a millennial that was hired at a young age. It's basically tailoring your resume to the job, making sure that you are fully explaining your qualifications to that job. So one of the things I always say, more information for your accomplishments and how you achieve them in your resume is a good resume. Yep. People always say you're supposed to have 2 resumes. That is impossible, because if you're changing careers, if you're going from an HR specialist to a program analyst, you need to tailor that resume to that kind of work. It's not, this is what I did and I'm done, because that's not how it works. You have to show that you understand what the new job entails.
Yeah, I usually tell people you're probably going to be working with 5 to 6 different versions of your resume whenever you're applying for jobs. And
absolutely,
it's not a one size fit all. But I agree that we encounter, because I don't know if most people know that I spent the last, like, what, 15 years in HR, um, doing HR work, but we encounter receiving resumes. And I've even encountered receiving resumes through the specialist where the person still, in my opinion, didn't meet the minimum qualifications as it was written for that job that they applied for. So it is paramount that your resume actually speaks to the work, not a bunch of descriptions of the work, but actual work that you've done, things that you're proud of that you've accomplished in those jobs. If you sit back and you say, what have I done in this job that was great that I want to showcase, and you have nothing, then you need to go figure out what you can showcase. All right. But showcasing those things that you've accomplished in the job is what's going to get you the next job. Right?
Absolutely. And so one of the things is, being able to explain that. I mean, when managers look at your resumes, like you said, you got 45
I did.
resumes. 45 applicants. And I guarantee you, the applicants that you looked at was the ones that actually, because for us in staffing, if they meet it, we have to send it. I mean, some of them you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I got to send this resume, because I have heartburn. Even when I get,
That's
resumes.
be with the classification folks. Why would you
Yeah.
resume? They say
Yes.
budget, but they do no analytical work. Just use them.
Right. So because, for us, it's not black and white. So it's not, whereas we can just say, oh, they don't do it, but they are, they're budget analysts. So they got to do some kind of analytical work or something to that effect. But, for us is, okay, we see that they have potential to do it, or they may have not. And that's why we say explain as much as you can. Don't worry about the length of your resume. Explain it. Explain what you do. Don't just say, oh, I logged in, applicants from a database. What did you do with those applicants? Did you assess their analysis? Did you assess their skill sets, their education? Did you assess, what they need to be able to do this job when they first walk in the door?
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things. And so when you get those 45 applicants as a manager, because when I do it for an HR specialist, I get hundreds of applicants, especially in the Washington, D.C. area. But what I look for is, the different things of who really told me how they accomplished that work.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that get the interviews. So for me, is if you are detailed enough and able to tell them in your resume how you accomplish those things, those are the ones that's going to get the interview process.
Absolutely. And I know, the varying degrees of where you are in your career will dictate the details that you put into your resume. And as you're building your portfolio, the detail grows. And I'm saying that because we have some younger people on the call that, may be in stepping stone positions, but wanting to transition into something else. And I know one young lady in particular who will be graduating, who has a stepping stone position, but is now looking to translate her degree work in her studies into, a better position or job for herself. Can you talk a little bit about how you get to that point?
So one of the things that you definitely can do is detail. Don't be afraid to go on a detail into different roles. Get a mentor that's in that line of work that can help you gain that experience. Most people don't realize that the government has that option for people to detail to other organizations. I know at Energy, I see it a lot. I see a lot of internal vacancies that are just detail. You don't have to have the experience. You just, you're going there to gain the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so that mentorship, taking the additional courses, for me, especially in HR, anytime I can give anybody the opportunity to detail into my office, to me, that's how I started. You know, I started as an assistant, and someone saw the potential in me. I didn't think that I was going to be an assistant forever, but I didn't think that I was going to go as fast as I did. But because I applied myself and I took on everything that my mentor in HR taught me and taught someone else, they saw that I was ready to go into a specialist role. I was ready to step into a senior specialist role, then the supervisor role. So to me, it's, you know, just continuing to learn and not giving up on it.
What about young people coming out of school who are not already in the government? What advice would you give them?
Just because the door closed don't mean that it's one door closes that the other one is not another one to be open, because someone will give you the opportunity. Again, apply for the entry level jobs. I know sometimes people are, you know, I'll take me an example. You know, if I am going to finish my degree. That's my goal for this year, is to finish my degree. I'm a quarter away. And so if I wanted to change my career at this moment, I know I'll have to take a step back in order to step up. Right. Meaning that if I decide to go into the SES realm, I know that I may have to take another leadership role in order to get there, because it takes that. And so for the ones that are coming straight out of college, take those low internship jobs. Take those jobs where you have to gain some experience. I always say some experience is better than no experience. So everyone, and get you a mentor. Definitely get you a mentor, especially in the field that you want to go into, because those are the people that can help you open those doors. One of the things I learned at Deloitte was networking. One of the things that I loved about Deloitte is that I had a career coach and I had a mentor, two different people.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I miss about the federal government, because I had a mentor when I was a stay in school student. And that's how I learned to love HR. That's why I fell in love with HR, because she mentored me. And so, but when I got to Deloitte, and that was the automatic number one thing that they give you your first day, is a career counselor and a mentor. Your mentor is to help you, you know, outside of your career. And I like it that way. And one of the things that I was telling my HR director is, we need a mentor program here. I said, I haven't seen it in so long.
That DOE does have a mentoring program. I actually signed up, just FYI for you, I signed up for, and I have one mentee that I'm working with. One of the things that, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did want to let you know that DOE has a mentor program, and you know that I just finished the federal coaching program, which DOE is trying to stand up. But I do agree that the private sector has that unlocked. Like, you come in, you get those assigned. We're not doing that, even though these programs exist. The other thing that I know for a fact is our Black people don't take advantage of those programs. I had an intern. And not that, you know, it has anything to do with race. Intern, she wasn't a Black person. My mentee, she's not a Black person. So our Black people do not take advantage of these programs. They don't even seek them out. If the agency or organization you work for doesn't promote it, doesn't necessarily always mean that they don't have it. And if you don't have it in your agency, find it somewhere else.
Create it. That's what I said. So I mean, because that was one of the things, and you know, NNSA is, you know, a autonomous agency under DOE. So sometimes, you know, big DOE, we don't get everything that you guys see. And so, you know, we have our own learning and career management team. And so that was one of the things that was my passion. And I worked with the director for LCM. His name is Dr. Dave Root. And I was like, Dave, we need a mentorship program. And he was like, Jillian, why did you say that? I said, because I didn't get to where I am without my mentor. I didn't get to my career level. And, you know, he's like, well, what would you do? And I said, you guys have all these detailed leadership courses. What about mentoring courses? I think, these days we have a lot of interns that think that they should come in and make $100,000. You have to work for it. It's not given.
Yeah.
Everything you have to gain. It's not just a given. I can't walk in and say, oh, I walk in, I have 4 degrees. Okay, but you have no experience.
Right.
But you want $100,000. But you have to have both, and so you have to be willing to take. It's a give and take world, and so you have to show your initiative. You have to show that you can be able to do it. I think one of the things that I talk to, because I do a lot of the internship conversations with our interns that are coming in, that are just graduating. One of the things I said is always be willing to continue to learn, because they feel, oh, I went to school for 7 years. I already know how to do your job.
Yeah.
Believe me. If I was to leave, you won't know how to do my job, because it's not something that you learn in a book. It is literally something that you learn by trial and error. On the job training is a key. Get a good mentor, and that's why I said a mentor in the field that you want to go into is the perfect person to work with, because they'll be able to show you the things that they've learned throughout the years.
Absolutely.
I have 2 junior specialists now that I talk to more than I talk to my senior specialists, because I want to teach them everything that I know, and how I got to where I am.
Yeah, I agree. And even at my level, I have no desire to be in the senior executive service. However, I desire to have all the training and be able to compete at that level and have the knowledge and skills and ability at that level. So even at this point, having a mentor or a group of mentors that can help you maneuver through, there's always new challenges that you're going to face as you elevate and go through your career. But even now, still having that sounding board is something that has been, invaluable for me. Even a lot of you guys on here are my sounding boards. So I thank you for that too.
Yeah, because you need a mentor. So, as I said, I use my mom because she's been a supervisor.
Yeah.
She's been in the federal government a long time. And so, huh?
I've used your mom too. She's another tough manager, tough leader, but fair, and just somebody that, you'd be like, yeah, that's kind of how I want to be when I get there. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, because when you talk to any of her staff that she's dealt with throughout the years, they still remember her. I mean, we just gave her a 60th birthday party, and it was, to hear the things that people said, even when, they were RSVPing, oh my gosh, your mom is amazing. She's one of, my favorite supervisors. She taught me a lot. And so I live by that, never be unwilling to share your knowledge, because someone will appreciate it in the end. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about mentoring, especially young HR specialists, because I wasn't just given this opportunity. I found that this was something that I love to do. So that's why I stayed in the HR realm. That's why I continue to be able to share all my knowledge that I can, because again, as I get older, or as I go further in my career, I still want to look back and say, I was able to accomplish that, or she, helped me get there. I want to look back and, when I retire from the federal government, I want people to say, oh my gosh, Jillian helped me get to the career that I am.
Can I come work for you? No, just I have one final, in the interest of time, because I want to let the participants ask their questions. One final question that I stole from my colleague from last week. If there was anything that you could do differently, what would you do differently, or what would you tell the young Jillian when she first started out?
Oh, I think one of the things that I would change is definitely don't chase the money, chase a career. Um, that is one of the things that I had to learn to think differently um, when it comes to that, because sometimes money is not always the best option, and that's what you learn. Just going from private sector to federal government, sometimes it's what's benefiting you, what helps you grow. And throughout my career, me going in and out, I was at first I was just chasing the money. Oh, okay, I'm done. I think I should make this much money. Or my goal was, by this age, I want to make six figures. Okay, now, but you get there and you're like, well, was that the right thing to do? Because now I don't like my job. No, because it was about the money. I didn't think about the career aspect. So for me, it would have been, chase your dream and not your dream chase you.
Yeah, that was powerful. Well, thank you. I will open the floor for other questions now. Not everybody can speak at one time. So have at it. Any questions? No. You have to, unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, because everybody's on mute. I think somebody's trying to talk here. Okay, go ahead, Ebony. Wait, you're muted. Hold on, let me unmute you. There you go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. What advice would you give someone who has never worked for the government and have experience in, I guess, federal, and they wanted to apply for a position for the DC government, federal government? I don't know if I'm asking that question correctly or not.
So if you've just never worked for a government entity, but you're interested in it,
Yeah.
like you're working to that.
Yes.
All right.
So this is one of the hard parts of my job, is trying to coach people onto how to get into the government. When I got in, like I said, through the student program. So you have to look at the different avenues. There's several different avenues to get into the government without being a veteran or a federal employee. So one of the things is each situation is different. So my answer is always, it depends. So it depends on your background. It depends on what eligibility you can use to apply that's not just open to the public. The federal government has hundreds of special hiring authorities, to look at those too, because you may never know that you can get in through one of the special hiring authorities just as well as anybody else. So that's one of the things that I always say, look at the special hiring authorities, look at the student programs, the internship programs.
So when you say internship programs, are those programs usually internship with no pay or paid internships?
Both.
Actually.
Both.
I had an intern last summer that came through a program where it wasn't actually paid, but they did get a stipend and they got housing. So she came from another state. They put her up in, I think it was GW's dorms, and she stayed. They gave her housing. I think we paid about, it was a little under $20,000 for the 8 weeks that she was here, but they gave her a stipend and housing. But her experience, like with me, she was able to travel to our sites in New Orleans. She had never, this particular young lady had never been anywhere outside of her hometown. I took her to New Orleans with me. We went to one of the sites that are remote locations. So she got to see, she had a great experience. She got to see the sites. She got to travel outside of the DC area. Coming to DC was her first time traveling outside of her hometown, which I didn't know until she got to our office. But I mean, even though she didn't have a paid internship, she gained. And when I say she used that time, she was meeting with people in GC, she was meeting with people in congressional affairs, trying to drum up work for the next summer. So, I mean, some of them are paid and some are not. But
So
Yeah.
where do you go to find this information to see what's available?
So what I would say is, you know, that's why I call it the research of your career. Look at the different agencies that a lot of so for us, I'll use us as an example. The National Nuclear Security Administration has hired a lot of general engineers, physical scientists. So we go to a lot of the engineering schools such as Texas A&M and do recruitments there. And so work through your organizations. So different organizations use different things. And so I'm not for sure what your degree is in, but
Well, I'm asking for someone else.
okay.
I have one thing that I'd like to say. So as a general rule, before you go to agency, OPM's website is like your overall resource for government-wide programs, right? So they'll give you all the generalized information of the types of programs that you need before you start. I think you would start there before you start looking at the different or specific agencies that you're interested in. And so Jillian made a good point. It is based on whatever your career aspirations or your interests are, but I think as a general rule, OPM's website is a good place to start to look for some of those programs because they end up linking you to other agencies and stuff like that. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, so OPM has their own, they are majority of the federal government's overarching source, right? But then we also have some agencies have their own source. So like for NNSA, yes, we deal with OPM, but we also have our own. So some agencies have their own hiring authorities. So I have what we call the accepted service hiring authorities, where you don't have to meet any of the requirements for that's OPM driven or OPM mandated, and I could just hire you straight off the street because you know I met you in a job fair and I say, oh, she can do the job that I need her to do, those kind of things. So that's why I say each agency has it's the research of knowing what you want to do in your career in order to tailor it. But OPM, she's right. OPM is your starting point, but also look at the different agencies and looking on their website. So I always tell people, you know, go to you know NNSA website first as well. So then you can see what we're looking for. Is that something that you're interested in doing? And then, you know, look at the jobs that we have, and because it could be something that's listed out there. We use LinkedIn, we use for accepted service jobs. We're on LinkedIn, we use job boards too, just for our accepted service jobs. They're not always on OPM.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to point out about accepted service jobs, I mean, like that's a good way for outsiders to get in government. And I actually, unbeknownst to me when I was younger, didn't know the difference. I took an accepted service job. I was there for a year. I was working for a lawyer at the Federal Election Commission. And I didn't realize that the job was accepted service. And why I'm saying that is that they can fire you at will. It's like being in the private sector. I had no idea. I found this out later. And I said, oh my God, they could have fired me while I was there. So that's just another good way. One of the ways that we're using direct hiring authorities, our site, so I work for the Oil Reserve Program, so our site down in New Orleans is using direct hiring authority to recruit for a lot of the positions that they have now, since we have so many presidential directives that are happening with our program. But that's another way and not that we want to circumvent or pass over our veterans, but over the years, the federal government has put so many rules into place to help veterans get back into the workforce that it does make it very difficult for applicants outside of the government to get into the government. So these are just some of the other ways that agencies can recruit private industry folks, right? Because I mean, the other way is that if you have some specialty that these agencies are looking for, that like only certain people can do these things. That's another way that they have direct hiring authority to get people into the government. So it's just, you know, as you're thinking about the career paths, or if those translate into some of those ways that agencies can hire you for your special niche, that's another way to get into the government. And not that this always gets you in, but you can use your education as supporting factors for getting for experience, if you will. It's not heavy weighted, but there is an option for people to do that.
Okay, this is all good info.
Any other?
Hi.
I like the way
Yeah.
she raised her hand on the thing. So just it's true that.
Hi, Shanae, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, darling. I'm on this week. And I'm so appreciative of everything that I'm hearing. Of course, you know, to everybody, I am Shanae's cousin, and I'm a retired person, 40 years of the federal government. I want to say within those 40 years, at least 30 years of my career, I have been a career coach. So I have actually written over 700 resumes. And I want to say to the young lady, first of all, you may need to find a resume specialist, because you would have to write your resume from what you have into where you're trying to go.
I agree.
And of course, the OPM's website is the first place to start. And within that, you will find, like the young lady said, the guest speaker said, the agencies have their own programs. But that's something that, as a mentor and as a resume or business writer, that I could teach you. So a lot of people that do not know how to get in the federal government, they need to get with a resume specialist. And that person should also teach them how to look for the job and see what the requirements are and how to qualify for those requirements. So this is something I've been doing for years. Of course, I'm retired now, and I am a arts and craft teacher for PG, Parks and Recreation Commission. So, but I still help people. I still have people call me about Guardian Angels. I update resumes because I keep them all on my computer, my laptop, and I still help people to get jobs that they want and not sure if they qualify for.
Is it okay to share your information after this with people that are interested? Is that okay? If they have questions?
That is okay. And the information that I will share, you have my phone number.
I do.
And I can send you my email.
Okay.
If someone want to send me an email and ask me a question, you know, sure. This is a God-given gift. Yeah. And like I said, I have written over 700 resumes.
I did not.
So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, oh yeah, I've been doing this all my life to help people to understand that that getting a job is important, but where you get the job is most important, because you also mentioned that you can get in an agency, and that's why I've always been with federal government, that can fire you at the drop of a hat.
Absolutely.
With absolutely no reason. And that's why I never went into the private sector, because I've always had kids. I've always been a single mom. And if I fail, they fail. Mm-hmm. So I've always had to stay in a position where my house stays strong.
I love that. I agree.
Yeah, so I've always stayed with the federal government. Of course, I'm an IT person, so I came out as the IT auditor
Nice.
and also security officer for the Department of Treasury. But most of my career was with the Department of Navy, and that's where I've gotten all of my training and certifications, and I took that information to help other people.
Thank you. Thank you
Uh,
so much for sharing. You made a good point. One of the things that, like, even when I wanted to start this business, TBS LLC, I was thinking these young people will go pay all this money to stay fly. But they need to start
yeah,
investing
yeah,
themselves and their careers. So I think that's
yeah.
that you said they need to get a resume writer, coach, or something. Invest in that. It's not cheap. I will say that it's not cheap. I used to do it. I no longer do it. So I love that I have
But
actions
right,
that I can refer them to. But yeah,
right.
invest in it. It'll.
But it's not cheap. It's not cheap, but I am cheaper than what you will find in any newspaper or magazine.
I hear you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's not cheap because see, I have to put myself in their shoes. They tell me
Uh-oh. She got muted somehow. I'm trying to unmute her.
that's what
There you go. You got muted for
I've had people with 3 and 4 degrees and don't know how to explain their work experience. People that's been in the military that has supervised 18 to 25 people, but don't know how to elaborate on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had a lot of people. I feel very blessed to be able to do that. And of course, they come back to update those resumes when they're looking for another job, because I teach them how to take the experience from one place, one career, one series, one position into another position. Because a lot of times people do not know that what they've done.
I'm not sure why her phone keeps muted.
Still, and I have friends that actually call me their guardian angel, even though I'm also a seamstress. So right now I'm making masks. You know, so when we do get back to work, I can give all of my students a mask and they can design it however they want to. That's going to be our first project.
Okay.
But
Maybe
I
don't.
I really love what you're doing here. And I just wanted to say that person needs, first of all, a career coach, needs a resume writer, a business writer, and also someone that's familiar with the federal government, because there are steps that you should take to get in.
Yeah. So I'll share your email and phone number with folks, but I in the interest of time, I want to just see if anybody else has other questions. But I learned a lot just now, things that I didn't know. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I'm not going to talk too much because you know Cousin B can talk.
I know.
So I'm done.
Thank you.
You.
Okay, Michelle, you Angie, and then Michelle. You gotta I'll unmute you. There you go.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, thank you for doing this. I am an HR liaison with HUD, and I've been in that position for the past 6 years. So although I'm a little older, I'm still ambitious, and I want to see an upward trajectory in my career. So talking with my supervisor, I think, well, I'm not gonna say how I may come off to him, but what advice would you give to me as to how I can show my value to my manager? Because I am the go-to person in my office, but I just feel like in the agency that I'm in, people hold their jobs very close to them, and they feel threatened when people want to do more. So how can I show my value so that they can see that I'm a person that could possibly be supervisor or manager material?
Jillian, you want to take that?
Sure. One thing is, don't change your self and thinking, because I had to go through that as well. But just showing them that sharing their information. So I like to take on special projects just to show my growth. One of the things that I tell my junior specialists, take on a project and just to show your leadership, volunteer. You see something that's in your office that's not working, volunteer to take that on as a special project in your own time. I think that's one of the ways to be able to show and grow. To me, I always say that's my prove you wrong kind of thing, especially when you have a manager that doesn't support your growth. It's harder, but it works because other people will recognize it. And so that's where you have to make sure that you are fulfilling your career goals. So just because your manager don't see it, other managers will. So don't stop doing it. So that's why I said take on, a special project, fix something in your office that, may not be working, and take it on as a challenge to help correct it. Give your ideas. I used to be the one that gave all the ideas, and then I had a manager that never took any of my ideas. So I stopped, I got quiet. And then they were like, well, Jillian, you don't even talk in staff meetings anymore. And I'm like, well, I'm tired of giving my ideas and they're not taking it. But other people saw that and used me as a SME, a subject matter expert, because they saw that I was willing to share my knowledge regardless of what my manager thought that I shouldn't do. But network, always network. Talk to other managers outside of your organization. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with asking other managers for opportunities. Like I said, to me, I'm always looking for a detailee in our HR office. I have HR liaisons that, want to transition to others. And so that's what I like to do. I like to give people the opportunity to detail just to see if that's really what you want to do.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that
You're welcome.
Sinead, I'd like to add to that for the young lady. Just
hold on. One of the things that I'd add to that is I actually went into a situation where and I shared this on previous calls, but I went into a situation where I felt like people thought, so the guy that hired me came to fix problems, but I had worked with him previously in another office. He didn't hire me to come fix problems. That was not an agenda that we had or something that, but that was what people thought. And so it took me about a year for me to realize that if I wasn't supposed to be here, I wouldn't be here. And to say, now let me just show them who I am and what I bring to the table. But it took almost a year for me to get to the point where I was comfortable enough to just say, you know what, I don't really care what they think. I'm here to do a job, and these are the things that I could do. That man is gone. And so now they see it wasn't about him bringing me into the job. It was about my ability to do the job. And sometimes I think people hold the information to themselves because they're intimidated by what you bring to the table. And we just got to get over that for ourselves. I don't care what your intimidation is about me being at this table, but I'm here as a resource. And I think when people get comfortable enough and see that in you, that they will start to be able to share. But I think you yourself can set that tone, if you will. And I'm sorry, BB. Let me unmute you there.
career coach. So, excuse me. So everything you do builds that resume. You know, like she said, ask, can you volunteer to be a part of a project? And then asset to that project. And then, as they say, when you do something for 6 months to a year, you can claim it as experience, and you build your resume, and it'll work for you.
Okay.
It'll work for you because you'll have it as experience, and once you have the right resume writer, all those things will go in at the right place. Where when you apply for something, HR and the program specialist will see directly that you have the experience for a particular job. So don't be discouraged, do it, ask to do special projects, and build your resume.
Nice. Thanks, BB. I think, Michelle, did you have a question? Okay, Michelle, and then we'll take Francine's question. Okay.
Hi, Jillian. I just wanted to ask you, and I know that you touched upon this a lot regarding recruiting for jobs in the different authorities that are out there for hiring. But I wanted to ask you, how do you feel that social media plays a part in doing recruiting? I know that now, because of COVID-19, we're using a lot of social media to stay in contact with certain people. But when you're talking about recruiting for a job, how important do you feel social media is? And also how important it is to have a clean social media page?
Okay, so I'll give you my answer in both private sector and federal sector. Private sector, we use social media all the time. That was my first time ever using it at Deloitte. And we found that that's how we reached when we had what we call our target audience. So it depends. It depends on what audience you're trying to reach, because not all people are on social media. Some people shun social media because it doesn't help them in their daily lives. Whereas if we're looking for the millennials, we do a lot of recruitment on social media, especially the ones that are coming out of school. And so at Deloitte, we use it all the time. Federal wise, it's a little harder because, again, social media is judged in the federal sector, especially if you are in a national security where you need a clearance. You know, people don't understand that everything that you put on is now there forever. And so people tend to forget that. So we do our recruiting on social media when we're doing job fairs. So the information that you are tailoring to the audience is how you use the social media platform. I've seen it work in both ways. I like it, especially if I'm trying to reach the younger, fresh out of school target audience. As you know, some baby boomers don't use social media platforms, so it depends on the job and who you're looking to recruit for. So to me, when we have those recruitment strategy talks with hiring managers, I always ask, what's your target audience? Because that would tell me the platform that I need to use. Did I answer your question?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, but for those who use social media, how do you feel that it's necessary to, everyone has a personal life, but because there are those businesses who use social media as their recruitment form, how do you feel as far as having a so-called clean page?
So let's
to me, it should be more driven to your target audience. So when you say a clean page, are you saying, you know, being tagged in people's posts?
No, so let me be just real frank. There are times when you go on social media and you have pages that have derogatory comments, derogatory pictures, and sometimes there are individuals who are applying for jobs that they don't understand how important that is, that they can be used against them when they're trying to be hired for a job. So I was trying to say it in a more of a political way, but since I have to just come out and say it, how do you feel the importance of having a clean page, especially when you're trying to either enter into the workforce or maintain your job, depending
Oh,
on what it
absolutely.
is that you do?
Absolutely. So because I'm in the national sector, I'll take me as an example. It's very few, far in between that I comment on anyone's page because it can be used against you. I'm not an investigator, but in our line of work and when we're going through our background investigation, they look at everything. Yeah. You could have commented on something 10 years ago, and my 10-year-old self is not that same person. However, what we say when we are doing training for interns and stuff like that, watch what you post on social media, because it can be used against you, because that is what they call character building. You don't want someone to judge you off of what you post or comment on social media, because that may not be at that moment how you feel or who you are, but that's what they're judged by. You're judged by the smallest things of your life. And so a clean social media to me is always the best, especially when you're getting into a position. I know that at Deloitte, they view your social media before they even interview you.
Of that.
And people do that. I have managers that will go Google you on social media to this day just to see what kind of things that you post. Because again, when you are in job or career path that, especially that's dealing with national security, they take that very seriously. It's called character building. And so to me, if it's not something that you're comfortable with your mom or your grandmother seeing, you don't post it.
Right. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Let me take Francine. We'll take Francine, Quintella, and then you, Kiera.
Good afternoon. I'm going to make mine really quick. Thank you, Jillian. I think she's answered a lot of the questions that I had. I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I'm in private sector, but I'm also at 22 years at the company. So I'm on my way out. So I would just say that you have given me a lot of pointers to use as a mentor. We need to reach back, as Shanae said. A lot of people in our culture don't take advantage of the free things that are available, but also we don't always reach back and grab one. Yeah. So you have given me a lot of pointers to use, because a young lady just asked me this year to be her mentor, and I was really thrilled. I was shocked at first because I didn't think she really looked at me like that, and we never know who's watching us. But not only for people to ask us to be the mentor, but just grab someone and mentor them when you see them in need. And so thank you, Cousin BB, for your comments, because she was right in line with what I was going to say, that, how the younger ones need coaches.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jillian, for your comments.
Thank you. Quintella.
Sorry, I had to take myself off of mute. Hello, Jillian. Quick question. And I think both you and Shanae pointed this out a little bit, but I just want to have you guys to maybe, Jillian, elaborate a little bit more. The veterans' preference changing the trajectory of the federal sector and the hiring strategies for federal agencies throughout the government or at NNSA, or what have you seen in the past?
Can you repeat that question one more time? It came in choppy.
Okay, let me put my headset. How has the veteran preference changed the trajectory of hiring in the federal sector at NNSA, or what you've seen or heard throughout the federal government with veterans preference? Because you kind of pointed that out a little bit about how you have to have maybe direct hiring authority or other accepted service hiring. So the hiring of veterans, how's that changed since you've been working in the HR field?
Oh, it changed. It changed a lot. As I said, I started out as a stay-in-school student. I wasn't a veteran. Even now, with our pathways, veterans still get first priority. So it definitely has changed the way we in HR have to do business. It has it hasn't given us the opportunity to still help others. I have no problem with veterans. You know, I have plenty of veterans in my family. My dad is a veteran. So to me, I wish everyone was treated equally and we just had their own hiring authority and still be able to assist the others that didn't have the opportunity that I had to get into the federal government. So it definitely has done a 360 for us, even in HR. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, believe you me.
True. Yeah, I
Thank you.
started a program too. And again, that was another way to directly hire or transition someone into the federal space. But now they've changed the rules on that. That was the way that when in my first supervisory position, I hired students. Quite a few that they were in school, I would hire them, then I transitioned them into permanent positions. But even now that's changed. So it makes it a little bit more difficult for non-veterans to get into some of these positions that way. So Kiara, we'll go ahead and take your question next, and then we'll close out.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Jillian. My question, you have touched on a lot of good points that are very beneficial for me coming out of school soon. And the question that I had was, I know that you touched on internships can be a big part of resume building and also a way of getting into the federal government or any type of position that I may be looking into. Without that internship experience, my question is, what other alternatives or solutions that you can give me to help build up my resume to get in the federal government position, or like I said, any other position I might be looking for once coming out of school?
That's a great question.
So I would say other ways is the federal HR courses, taking some of the federal HR classes. Like I said, some of them are free to understand the federal knowledge side of each career path. Another is volunteering. You can work in different organizations outside of the federal government. Contracting is a big way to get into the federal government, because you sometimes merge into the federal space that way if you don't want to do the internship program. I'm trying to think of another way.
I think you just touched on something though that I actually just shared with Kiara, because my sister was she was transitioning out of school and into the workspace, and she started as a contractor at a federal agency. And so I just was speaking to Kiara about maybe going that route first, since it's a little bit easier for private companies to hire you. And it's just something that, another way to gain the experience, and not necessarily, so I look at it in two ways, not necessarily just the federal space experience, but when I've worked with, in particular, and Jillian, I know you used to work for this company, contractors from Accenture, I remember saying to myself, these contractors have a boatload of resources at their disposal that the government just does not do for us. Right. And having to go outside, we got to go outside of the government to get these resources or hire contractors to do the work. So that's just another way of getting into or gaining experience if you can't get into the government right away. But I also agree that the volunteer piece, that's huge. You know, sometimes you have to go and do things that you might not get paid for to gain experience or insight to build your resume. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, actually, you know, a lot of the things, especially with the new hiring plan, implementation of the hiring plan when President Trump got into office, he put us on a hiring freeze. And so his plan is to streamline the government. And so one of the things is, even though we don't have federal positions, or he doesn't want us to fill out federal positions, we hire a lot of contractors. And so that's why I said, you know, contracting is another way to get the federal experience and not even be in the federal government. And so when you total up my years of federal HR experience, it's contracting and federal government. But all of it was federal experience, federal HR experience, because I was hired as a contractor to do federal HR work. And so you don't have to, it doesn't just have to be, you know, federal experience, getting it directly from the federal government. Contractors are just as qualified. And as Shanae said, you know, we hire a lot of contractors to do our work. When our budget is tight, believe me, they'll give you contract money to get your job done. And so that's one thing that, you know, it's frustrating, because, you know, I know the federal government is where, you know, a lot of people want to see, because it's that safe and secure space, just as well, financially, career growth wise, but also the contract space is just as safe. People always say, well, you dip in and out. Is because I was safe at both places. As long as you do your job, you have no worries.
Thank you for the feedback. And the leadership skills, I do have a lot of that and a lot of certifications based off of what my major requires to have. So I will most definitely take everything that you both guys said into consideration and push forward. Jillian, did you mind sharing your email address just in case for other information or email that I may can send you?
Oh, absolutely. So that was one of the things that I was going to say at the end of the call. Like I said, I am the type of person that is an open book when it comes to HR, federal HR, or even your career growth through HR. So please feel free to send me an email. It's actually Jillian Hunt 413. So it's my first and last name together, 413@gmail.com.
Thank you, Jillian. Thanks, Kiera. On that note, I just want to just thank everybody for participating today. We went a little over time, but I think it was well worth going over the time. And that's one of the things that I've gotten from feedback from folks. Somebody said, oh, you should make it 2 hours. And I'm like, I don't think I can keep people's interest for 2 hours. But today we were pushing on almost 2 hours. But so I thank you for your time with us today. So over the last 3 weeks, we've ended things on a positive note. This has become our theme song for this series, and today is no different. So we will end on a positive note. I like the boogie. It's all in me. So I thank you guys for participating. Thank you so much, Jillian.
You're welcome. And again, if you guys have any questions in regards to the HR realm, please feel free to reach out to me. If it's in regards to how do I get hired? You know, what can I do? If there's any internships that we have here at NNSA, absolutely. Like I said, I'm working with our training department now to do a mentorship, and it's not just for DOE. We're actually going to partner up with DC Mentoring organization that's going to actually connect us with high schoolers. And so that's one of the things that I'm working with, to connect with high schoolers in DC to mentorship as they transition to college and get ready for their career.
Nice. Thank you again. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. And so just so you know, I'm gonna come back soon. I have to take a little break from this, but we'll have some other topics that we'll bring to the table. We'll bring some men to the table that are doing great things. So just keep that in mind, and I'll get information to you all as new topics come up. But I have to take a little break for a little while. So I'll see you soon.
Great job.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good job.
Bye-bye. Bye, Nay.
Right now. Bye, Nay.